Welcome to the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Friday, November 17th. This is Gina McGuire. Over the last month, we've had very dry conditions continue over the southern half of the Great Basin with no precipitation over the last 4 weeks. However, further north, most of the precipitation has been focused in the Sierra and up into northern Nevada, Idaho, Wyoming, and far northern Utah. Most of this area has seen below normal precipitation with the exception of the higher terrain of the Sierra and the central Idaho mountains into Wyoming, where the precipitation over the last month has been above normal. Looking at the new snowfall over the last 72 hours, the image on the left shows that new snowfall in the higher elevations of the Sierra and over the northern third of the Great Basin, where over 1 to 2 new feet of snow has fallen over the last 3 days. Looking at the snow depth, on the right you can see where the deepest snow is up across Wyoming, into the central Idaho mountains, and into the higher terrain of the central Sierra. The satellite loop from this morning shows plenty of cloud cover and showers continuing across the Great Basin, along with still windy conditions in many areas. We will see some of those winds start to lighten up later today in the far western areas, but still be quite gusty today over the rest of the Great Basin. Now looking at the weather pattern for later today, as that trough of low pressure that's moving through the Pacific Northwest continues pushing eastward later today, winds will decrease over western areas of the basin, along with drier air moving in. However, we'll continue to see precipitation over the eastern two-thirds of the region, along with stronger winds today. With these gusty winds, dispersion will remain quite good in all areas, with the exception of dispersion becoming somewhat more poor in the higher elevations of the central Sierra as that ridge moves overhead. Looking at the transport winds today, again, the strongest winds today will be across the eastern two-thirds of the area, especially across the Arizona Strip, into Utah and into southern Idaho, where wind gusts over 40 or 50 miles per hour will occur. However, we will see increasing humidity and better chances of precipitation in many of those areas. Mixing heights will remain quite high over the eastern half of the area and be decreasing over western areas through the weekend. On Saturday, that ridge moves across the Great Basin, so we will see temperatures warming back to near normal along with drier conditions across all areas. Also, with the ridge moving overhead, winds will decrease. Therefore, we will see poor dispersion in most areas by Saturday. Looking at the transport winds, you can see this decrease in winds significantly across the Great Basin. We still may have some breezy winds across parts of Idaho into Wyoming, but speeds will be much less than what we'll see today. Mixing heights also will be decreasing and will be very low over the western half of the area and be more moderate over the eastern half of Utah. Looking at Sunday, the ridge starts to move further eastward and another trough of low pressure will approach the west coast. We'll still likely see dry conditions region-wide on Sunday with temperatures near normal. Also, dispersion will remain poor for one more day on Sunday. Winds will remain fairly light across the area. Again, still some breezy winds in the higher terrain of Idaho and Wyoming, but again, more moderate winds than what we've been seeing recently. Mixing heights also will be on the rise across the area as that next system moves in starting in the north. Looking at the clearing index for Utah, today clearing index with those strong winds will be very high across all of Utah, and then will decrease significantly as we move through Saturday and Sunday, and those winds start to decrease. By Sunday, winds in the high elevations of the central mountains up into the Uinta Mountains will be increasing, so you will see that clearing index start to increase in advance of the next storm. Overall forecast amounts of precipitation for the next 3 days are shown in this image. The heaviest precipitation will be in the form of snowfall in the higher terrain of Wyoming and into Utah and parts of eastern and northeast Nevada, as well as the central Idaho mountains. We'll also continue to see some precipitation today over the high Sierra with dry conditions region-wide through the weekend. Now looking at the conditions into next week, Sunday night another storm will move into the Great Basin and we will initially see precipitation over western and northern areas Sunday night into early Monday. However, by later on Monday, that storm quickly moves east with the precipitation mainly focused over the eastern half of the area. Dispersion will remain quite poor over much of the western half of the area later in the day on Monday as that next brief ridge of high pressure moves over, but we'll see slightly better dispersion with the gusty winds and precipitation over the eastern half of the basin. On Tuesday, another very deep trough starts to develop off the west coast, so winds will be increasing along with another shot at precipitation over parts of the Sierra into western Nevada and up into Idaho. Dispersion will remain poor over much of Nevada into Utah and the Arizona Strip with lighter winds as that ridge moves overhead, but will be increasing over Idaho into northwest Nevada as that next system approaches. On Wednesday, that system starts to push eastward into much of the northern third of the area, so we will see additional rain and snowfall over the northern third of the Great Basin Temperatures also will be on the rise next week, and we'll see temperatures around 5 to 10 degrees above normal across the area, so snow levels will start out quite a bit higher with rain in the low elevations with these next systems next week. Dispersion will remain poor over the southern half of the Great Basin on Wednesday due to those lighter winds and the ridge in place, but will be a little bit higher as that next system pushes east across the northern areas of the basin. On Thursday, similar conditions with the ridge dominating the south with dry and warm conditions and precipitation mainly focused in the north. So again, dispersion will remain poor in the south and moderate to good over the northern half of the area. Looking at precipitation amounts from Monday through Wednesday next week, and again you can see that focus over the northern third of the area with the heaviest amounts of precipitation across Idaho and Wyoming and the northern Sierra, with much lighter amounts across central Nevada and Utah, and again dry conditions continuing in the far south. If we look a little bit further ahead into the very end of November, we will continue with this above normal temperature pattern, especially over the southern areas of the Great Basin, and above normal precipitation mainly focused over the northern half of the area. That concludes our briefing for today. Check back on Monday for the latest updates.